T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah?
What is on your Christmas wish list?
What is on my... Actually, I guess that is a valid question. What is on there? I've got a few things on there that I'm hoping for. I actually have been looking at new head units for my car because I'm looking at commuting a bit more in the coming year. So, looking at a new double-din head unit.
This is in the Impreza. You've got
Yep.
you got the stock Subaru head unit from 2012, right?
Yeah, I have the 2012 Impreza, and the stock unit isn't bad, but
it isn't good.
It isn't good either.
Yeah.
The Bluetooth implementation is lacking, and
it's cheap and cheerful. That's about all you can say about it. It's okay.
Yeah. So that's on my. I know it actually won't be under the tree, but that might be a buy it for myself.
You got your eye on any particular head unit, like a CarPlay or an Android Auto unit, or?
I mean, I've been sort of looking at. Here's my other little dirty secret, Ethan. I might be headed back to the Apple side of the tech world.
You're back and back, baby.
back to being a Mac-tard.
And how is that? Why is that happening? What's going on with that?
I have an employment change coming up, and the default mobile phone is an iPhone. So I will be at least partially invested in the Apple ecosystem again, and if I'm going to have an iPhone, an Apple integrated head unit for my car might make sense. So I have not actually been looking at Android integrated ones, specifically Android integrated ones.
Yeah, I've been digging around on the CarPlay stuff as well. And CarPlay, from what I can tell, is right now immature. For example, Spotify is one of the very few approved applications that you can run in under CarPlay. And man, you should go up to the Spotify community site and dig around for the people that are pissed off about how Spotify doesn't work all that well with CarPlay. I guess it does most of the time, but some of the bugs that pop up are pretty annoying. So,
they're showstoppers.
Like blank screens after they do something, or they're listening to a podcast and then they get into the car and they plug it into the CarPlay head unit and the phone gets confused and it doesn't just pick up with the podcast that they had been listening to before they plugged in. And other sorts of things. I mean, CarPlay just sounds a bit immature, but then there's new software releases and things get better, and this bug is fixed and that bug is fixed. So it's like anything. It's whatever. If you and I go to CarPlay in the next few months, I think we'll be "quote unquote" early adopters.
Yeah,
very
probably.
much.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. So you're looking at head units as well.
Looking at head units, I bought myself. I need a third car because I have two teenagers, one of which is going to be heading off to college at some point soon, but commuting from home to do that. And, as we were looking at what we need 3 vehicles, unbelievably. So I bought myself kind of a fun car, a 2004 Forester Turbo. So you and I are Subaru people.
Yep.
And this is the model of car that apparently, as I was doing my homework on this car, apparently it's got a detuned STI motor in it and so on. When I tested it, it had plenty of oomph. It seems like fun. And I'm sorry, but the audio unit that's in it, it feels like it's from 2004. It's a 6 CD changer.
Oh, that's so cute.
CDs. I have those. I haven't used one in years, but I have many of them.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to using those. So I'm already shopping for a double-din head unit that I could shove into the Forester. And our Apple CarPlay, despite the early adopter nature of it, I'm going to very likely give that a shot.
Okay.
Because I am in the Apple world and so on. So besides the head unit, anything else cool on your list?
I've sort of been looking at drones. I've been seeing so much cool footage. We've discussed it. There's so many different types of them out there. There's one out here called the Quad H2O, and it's actually a submersible drone. It works underwater or it works in the air. It's kind of a cool looking
Your purpose for the drone would be video footage. In other words, a drone to you means video. It's not just a quadcopter that's fun to fly around.
World domination.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it. Full stop. No, yeah. I just like the idea of video footage, being able to it's a cool toy. I always loved remote control cars when I was a kid. And often tried to make the remote control cars submersible, even though they weren't. So, so the Quad H2O actually sounds kind of cool. But yeah, using it for just to fly around and get video footage is it's a really cool use of technology. I think it's not incredibly practical for me, but it's one of those that would just be fun.
Well, that is a perfect segue into our first story on today's Citizens of Tech. I am Ethan Banks at EC Banks on Twitter, and with me is
Eric Zutphen at Zutphen with a Z on Twitter.
And our first story today, thou shalt register thy drone. And this comes from an Ars Technica article where the title, their official title is FAA launches drone registration website gives owners February deadline. Boring. Thou shalt register thy drone. Way better headline. Hey, Ars, I'm available. Anyway, this all goes back to the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, requiring that drones be registered. Well, why? What is going on here? And the big deal is some drone operators are idiots, and they do things with their drones that endanger the lives of other people, and I guess you could say also terrorism and also privacy. So there is a link in the show notes here on sensitivetech.com to the Ars article and also to the FAA.gov registration FAQ page that talks a lot about why you need to register and what that means and all the rest. But we hit some highlights for you. One here, the FAA calls these drones unmanned aircraft systems, or UAS, because of course you got to have an acronym and an official government title for everything. Yeah, of course. It's only going to cost you $5 to register. So this is not, some onerous fee that it's going to make it so that some people just can't engage in the hobby. Mm-hmm. However, if you don't spend the $5 and register, the FAA can really, really lay down the law here. They are authorized to issue a civil penalty up to $27,500. And if there was a criminal penalty because of whatever incident happened with your drone, a criminal penalty could include a $250,000 fine and or 3 years of jail time. So, yeah, wow. kind of a big deal here. And I guess it kind of goes back to the root of what this is all about. There have been a number of incidents with drones that have been public safety issues. People have been hurt, and I think in a very few cases worse. And so the intention here is the FAA wants to know that you as an operator are in charge of that drone that's in the air, and if that drone comes down in a crowded space and injures someone or is used in some sort of an attack or something, they're expecting to be able to tie that drone back to an owner, is what it's all about.
Well, yeah, I mean, this sort of ties into the issue that we actually talked about in the last show with the Japanese fellow that landed radioactive sand.
Right.
Yeah, on the Emperor's Palace or whatever.
So, I mean, bottom line, you will have to get the registration done by December 21st, 2015, which is actually yesterday. We're recording this on December 22nd, for any new drone UAS that's purchased. If you already have a drone, you must be registered by February 19th, 2016. And this process applies to drones that weigh 55 pounds or less.
Are there drones that weigh more than that? Do we know?
Apparently.
So you don't need to register that?
Well, it's that there is another process for that.
Oh, gotcha.
There's paperwork involved. In other words,
maybe
55
that already
pounds
existed.
or more. It's a more serious thing, and there's already some other process that's been identified for that. And you're not just going to be able to fake it and say, "Yeah, I'm registered." You must have proof of registration with you when operating. And just like you got to have your driver's license with you when you're operating a car. If you don't, the cop can get pretty cranky with you. So, yeah.
Huh. That's interesting stuff.
Now, I know, you went to go see the new Star Wars movie, didn't you?
I did.
You did. Now, no spoilers, but, I think I asked you in an instant message, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1, you're flinging poo at the screen, and 10, you, wet yourself multiple times in the theater, how did this new Star Wars movie rank for you?
Only one wedding.
Only one.
Yeah.
So 9.5.
9.5, I'd say.
Okay. Are you serious? It was really that awesome?
I really, really enjoyed it. Some of the critiques that I won't get into here, but some of the critiques that are out there for The Force Awakens, I think are a bit heavy-handed and even unfair, because some of the things that people are complaining about are done intentionally to endear the film to longtime fans of the series. With that said, like I said to you initially, I think it actually is tied for my favorite Star Wars movie with Empire Strikes Back now. There was no prequelitis involved. Everything had a reason, I guess, is the best way to put it. And ultimately, the biggest thing that I would say about it is I actually cared about it, which is more than I could say about, episodes 1, 2, or really 3. I kind of cared in 3, but not so much as with 4, 5, and 6. So, yeah, thoroughly pleased with episode 7, and would recommend it to anyone that is on the fence about paying cold hard cash to go see it in the theater. It was worth it. I may actually even go back to see it again, which is something that I do not generally do.
So J.J. Abrams and Disney did not blow this up.
They did not, in my opinion.
Good, because J.J. Abrams' track record is not stellar here. He's, of course, been involved in the Star Trek reboots that have been... I think the best you can say is they've gotten mixed reviews from real Trekkies and Star Trek fans.
Yep.
And there's a new one coming out, a third in the series. There was the first Star Trek reboot, and then there was Into Darkness, which definitely got mixed reviews and really annoyed me at the end. It's like, yeah, I don't really need to see Spock hitting the guy again. That scene was drug out so long at the end of that movie.
Over.
It just got boring. It's like,
Yeah.
yawn, yep, moving on. You guys have phasers, right? But anyway, and now there's Star Trek, quote unquote, Beyond is the next one, the next installment coming in July 2016. And ours had an article, kind of an op-ed opinion piece, where the editor from ours, he really got his panties in a bunch. He just does not think that this new Beyond is Star Trek-y enough. This judgment based on a 90-second trailer. And then he saw people fighting and hitting each other. And it's like, okay, yeah, I guess I see your point there. It is another J.J. Abrams. So my take on it, based on seeing the trailer for Beyond, is if you liked the first two reboots, you'll probably like Beyond. And if you didn't like those first two reboot movies, then I kind of don't think this one's going to be for you either.
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah.
I saw the trailer a few days ago, and I wasn't blown away. It sort of is suffering from the J.J. Abrams, everything's exploding.
Well, it could be Michael Bay. Count your blessings.
Oh, true. Touche. You got me there. I'll take extra lens flare for fewer explosions. How's that?
Yeah.
It's probably one of the ones I probably won't go see it in the theater. I'll grab it when it's on demand of some sort, either Amazon or Netflix or something.
What I've done too. Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah.
Raspberry Pi, you found a new one, eh?
Yeah, Raspberry Pi's big brother. It's not actually made by the people behind Raspberry Pi, but this thing is it's called Pine 64, and it has a 64-bit ARM processor, and it's a system on a board that is expandable. It starts at $15. And this thing is serious. Like when I
said expandable, it immediately caught my attention.
Yeah,
oh, really?
It's super cool. So Pine 64. Initially, I was like, well, what the heck is that? What does Pine 64 mean? Well, it's named after pi, right? The number pi. So that's the pi, and then the number e, which is Euler's number, which is one of the 5 fundamental constants in mathematics, along with 0, 1. Pi itself, and then I, or the imaginary number. So that spells out pine for number E. And then 64 as in bits, because it's a 64-bit ARM Cortex. So I just had to throw this in there. Much like pi and E, my love for this project is irrational.
You went there.
But it's not irrational, actually, because listen about this thing. This thing is awesome. So it has a 1.2 gigahertz quad-core ARM Cortex A53 processor. So this thing's got some real muscle. which is further indicated by the fact that this can do up to 4K video via the H.265 codec. So you can actually do 4K video with this thing. It comes in a few different memory configurations and, with certain different add-on boards and things like that. But you can get this thing with 512 megs of memory, 1 gig, or 2 gigs of DDR3 memory. And it uses a micro SD slot for storage, so you can have up to 256 gigs of storage in this thing if you pony up for the 256 gig micro SD card. Comes standard with 10/100 1000 Ethernet, and there is optional Bluetooth 4 and 802.11 BGN connectivity as well. So, as previously stated, it is expandable via 2 I/O expansion slots. So they have a 7-inch touchscreen add-on for this thing. There's the aforementioned Bluetooth 4 and Wi-Fi adapters. There's a slew of add-ons, and they plan on releasing more.
Sounds like buying a car.
I know, right?
The base price is only $15. Did you want all this crap? It's $715. I don't know how much it is. I'm sure it's still quite affordable, but I know you're not getting all this for $15.
No, you are not. You can get this thing. It comes preloaded with Android Lollipop 5.1. And, you can sign into Google Play and download, one of the 1.6 million, I think they said, available Android apps. But you can also install, there's a version of Ubuntu for it that you can install. And then there's OpenHab, which is open source home automation software. You can install that on there. There's also OpenWRT. So if you want to make an open networking device out of it, you can. And then there's an XBMC distribution for it as well, which has actually been renamed to Kodi.
That was media streaming back in the day. I think the very early days of XBMC was at least on a first gen Xbox. You could hack it.
Exactly.
Load XBMC on it, and now it was Xbox Media Center, and you could do streaming and other stuff with it. And that's still that code? It's now called Kodi?
Yeah, it's been overhauled significantly since then, and has been renamed Kodi because it's not related to Xbox in any way, shape, or form at this point. But there's a build of that for the ARM 64-bit. So yeah, you were talking prices. These are actually available through Kickstarter at this point, and there are several models that you can get. There's the $15 model, which sort of comes, it's bare bones, Then there's the Pine A64 Plus, which starts at $19, which has a little bit more memory. It comes with 1 gig instead of 512 megs, etc. And then there's one for $29. You get the 2 gig package with a couple of other little add-ons. But really, if you're going to get it with the 7-inch touchscreen and all this, you're basically looking at around $89, which comes with the 7-inch touchscreen. It comes with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It comes with a 64-gig micro SD. So for under $100, you have a complete 64-bit computer, which is really, really cool.
I'm just imagining the touchscreen paired with the home automation OpenHab project, which I've never worked with, never even heard of it, I don't think, until you just mentioned it, and wondering, is that like an in-wall embed with the 7-inch touchscreen to do home automation tasks for under $100? I mean, that's one of the things that stopped me from getting into home automation is the expense of the hardware. You can drop thousands if you really get into it without a whole lot of trouble.
Oh yeah, just hardly any effort required to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. So for for a wall-mounted unit or what have you in a given room for under $100 each that's pretty dirt cheap for what you can do with it. Or you build a set-top box to stream your 4K content from Netflix and any other providers that have it at this point, and you're ready to go. I mean, you can literally stream 4K with this for under $30.
Wow, I can't get over how how much power, just raw compute power and bit handling is capable in that thing.
Yeah,
For such a low dollar amount. It's really, I keep shaking my head, all the tech that's in it.
Yeah, really? Is this for real?
Oh, man.
I'm picking up at least one of these.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it too. I'm going to go over to Kickstarter, and I think I might just opt up for the full thing and maybe start thinking about home automation more seriously again. I've just put it on the back burner due to expense. But Well, so something else that's probably going to be on the back burner due to expense is Elon Musk's Hyperloop. Here's another story I pulled from ours. Amid overwhelming interest, 124 teams qualify for Hyperloop pod competition. And the pod is okay. So let's take a step back. What is the Hyperloop? So if you've forgotten, this is Elon Musk, another one, SpaceX guy, and so on. And to quote the Ars article, Hyperloop would involve a pod or capsule moving at nearly the speed of sound inside a tube elevated above the ground. This kind of track system could provide rapid transportation between cities 1,500 kilometers or less apart, Musk said, after which supersonic aircraft would probably be faster or cheaper. Passengers might travel from Los Angeles to San Francisco in just 30 minutes, let's say, according to Musk. The idea was hailed as visionary by some, but others have criticized it for being far from practical. So that's the big idea. You got the tube. Now what are we going to put in the tube is what this competition is all about.
Because you don't just put people in there.
Please step into the tube. Hold
It's
your
a human
breath.
cannon. It's
Larger riders may travel slower.
Yeah, so there's got to be something actually inside here to put humans inside of so that they don't end up as jelly.
So engineering students have responded to this whole challenge because it means they get to work on a real problem. There's nothing like an actual real-world problem to motivate you. For example, I've dabbled in programming off and on over the years. I can't just sit there and write code to write code. I got to have a project, something I'm building, or I'm just not interested.
Got to have a goal, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, this whole does beg the question, isn't Hyperloop really unlikely to become a reality? And let me quote the Ars article again, because they sum it up really nicely in one of the paragraphs. It says, many questions have been raised about the financial viability of a new transportation system, but Musk has argued that the pods and linear motors to propel them along the tracks will be relatively inexpensive, costing, quote, several $100 million, whatever that means. A lot. Not quite $1 billion. Let's put it that way.
It's cheap, right?
Okay, the quote continues. The tube itself, rising above the ground on pylons with a narrow footprint roughly equal to that of a telephone pole, would cost several billion, with a B, dollars to construct alongside highways between major cities, he acknowledges. You know what? With all of the federal government in massive debt, local governments in very recent memory, several of which came to the point of bankruptcy or just utter collapse due to financial, just not liquid, did not have enough cash to sustain operations. How in the world is America, if we're talking about America, going to be able to afford to build such an infrastructure? We can't even do rail. We can't even get... up here in the Northeast, Eric, we're on buses. We can't even get rail built around here to get on between where we are in major cities.
Take it a step further. We can't even maintain the existing bridges we have in our country.
Oh, I know. It's sad. It's
we're
sad.
to the point where they're building bridges under bridges to catch the bridges when the bridges fall.
Well, right in our own town, they're doing concrete reconstruction underneath an existing bridge.
Yep.
To keep it going for another 40 or 50 years, since the bridge no doubt dates back to the Eisenhower administration. So, Hyperloop, is it brilliant and forward-thinking and clever, and would it be awesome if it existed? Yeah.
But it would have to be financed by Ellen, I think, at this point.
Oh, man, I have no idea. All I can say is at least we're going to get a test track because... Ours points out in the article that agreements have been secured for a 5-mile, $100 million test track in California. That's actually a different article that they covered that piece in.
I mean, that's only $20 million a mile.
And you'd think there'd be economies of scale that would kick in at some point.
You would hope. Oh, man.
But, I mean, if the logistics of it aren't just the mechanics of... Let's assume they've got the Hyperloop technically worked out. They know how it functions. They've got cars and pods. Now we've got to actually get right of way to go between cities. We've got to get stations built to get people into and out of this thing, and so on. So I don't know. It sounds like a logistical nightmare. Anyway, we should move on to our feature because you did some digging on 3D art inspired by the science behind Pixar, etc.
Yeah, a while back, I actually posted on the Citizens of Tech Facebook page a photo of the science behind Pixar exhibit that they had. We actually just went back this past weekend and spent more time in there because it's a huge exhibit. The exhibit discusses the roots of Pixar to some degree. They actually start mainly at Toy Story, which is actually 7 years after the founding of Pixar as a company proper as we know it today. It actually has roots way further back in the mid-'70s at various educational institutions, etc. So they talk a lot about the pipeline process of going from, concept art to storyboard to rough animations to, wireframes and on through the various stages of production. There are 40 interactive exhibit elements, from lighting, wireframe, textures, rigging, which is basically the marionette portion of it where you actually move all the joints and things. And this got me thinking more about ray tracing and my fascination with 3D graphics over the years. Certainly you remember Tron, the original. And
with Glee, yes.
Yeah. That was the first film that really made me aware of 3D graphics. And that sort of kicked off the curiosity, but my obsession, I guess, might be a strong word for it, but that started with Donkey Kong Country, the video game for the Super Nintendo back in, I think, 1993 or 94. I forget at this point. That made me want to learn to make 3D computer graphics, and I actually even ordered a program for my 286 computer from the back of a computer catalog, which was a risky proposition, but I actually did get the floppy disk and all that. The software was basically unusable.
Well, it was a Siski proposition, I think, technically.
So that leads me on to Blender, which is basically the open source alternative to Pixar's tools that they use for producing their movies. It should actually be noted that Pixar has recently made RenderMan, which is their tool, available for free if you're going to use it for a non-commercial use. And I'm guessing this is to get people familiar with their products so that when they hire people, people can already know how to use their tool. That's sort of a guess. But the problem with using RenderMan is if you want to use industry standard file formats, you really kind of need to use Maya, Katana, or Blender. And you can use RenderMan's rendering plugin to do the actual renders. So you would frame it out and all that in the other program and then actually render it with RenderMan. But it's not really needed either because Blender can do almost anything that RenderMan can. Not everything, and there are different ways of doing things, but Blender has come so far. Every year they release a feature film. It's not a feature-length film, but they actually make a film completely in Blender, and they have a render farm set up that they build it in. I'll link to a few of them in the show notes, but you can look on YouTube, for example, for Tears of Steel or Sintel. There are several. Those are the two that really popped out in my mind. I didn't look up every year's feature, but yeah, check out Blender if you're at all interested in 3D computer graphics, because it is yours for the low price of free. And as with a lot of free software, you do have to invest the time to learn the UI and watch some tutorials and all that. But if you follow the tutorials, you yourself can be rendering little gingerbread men like I learned.
Which is a good segue into some content that you like.
Yeah, so content I like, carrying that theme over, is BlenderNation.com, and they have an art gallery there that shows, what people have made with it. And then there's also BlenderGuru.com, and again, they have tutorials and videos, and they have, for instance, the thing that I'm linking in the content I like is their top 10 Blender artworks from October 2015. You can see what people make with this free software. It's astonishing what people are able to do. And I will probably never be able to do that, but it's cool to see that other people can.
Well, you and I also learned some things today, and I'm going to go first in our Today I Learned section. And this is a quote from authoritynutrition.com /artificial sweeteners and weight gain, link in the show notes at citizensoftech.com. And here we go. Quote, some researchers believe that artificial sweeteners such as aspartame, sucralose, or saccharin do not satisfy our biological sugar cravings in the same manner as sugar and could therefore lead to increased food intake. Although evidence is somewhat mixed on that. So the big idea there is we drink diet soda sweetened with things like aspartame, etc., because it's 0 calorie. But the sweetness signals our brain and says, there are calories coming, hooray! Only no calories show up. And so your brain goes, must eat food.
Where are the calories?
Yeah, and so we end up with a hunger craving that comes up because of the 0 calorie sweetness that we're consuming. So boo diet soda.
Yeah, you should be ashamed of your lack of calories.
What did you learn today?
I learned that Enceladus, Saturn's 6th moon, has a warm ocean at its southern pole with ongoing hydrothermal activity. It is the first ever discovered outside of Earth, and it is the most life-friendly habitat ever discovered outside of Earth. And that is from Popular Mechanics. So there could actually, hypothetically be some simple ocean-born life on the moon, the 6th moon of Saturn.
Well, all right, everyone, that is all for today's Citizens of Tech podcast. You can follow Citizens of Tech in all sorts of ways, including Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to know how to do that, head on over to citizensofTech.com and find those details. Hey, as you watch the new Star Wars movie this holiday season, we ask you to first honor the best Star Wars movie ever made, The Empire Strikes Back, by blowing up your local Rebel power station.